1928 Winchester Model 97. Howdy y'all and welcome back. So this is not going to be a Forgotten Weapons style detailed breakdown of the history or function of this weapon. This is the story of my Winchester Model 97. So back in 2009, there was a TV show on the Outdoor Channel called Cowboys. And I watched it when it was like sandwiched in between a couple of like self-defense shooting shows and whatever. It was like that a whole Wednesday evening like block of shooty stuff. And you know, it was like entertaining or whatever. And one day I'm watching it with my dad and he's like, "Hey, we have one of those." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, one of those old shotguns like that." I had no idea. And he's like, "Yeah, it was your great-grandfather's and it went through a flood back in the 60s and it's been broken forever, but it's just sitting in my closet." And I was like, "Well, go get it and let me check it out." And y'all, it was rougher than a stucco bathtub. It was full of river dirt. The stock was cracked in a spot right here. It was just awful. And if you're familiar with these, they will normally have a very brown patina kind of look. And you know, the wood's usually pretty chewed on looking, but I mean, this thing was awful. I was like, And we had joked about getting into cowboy action shooting, but like we had one gun that was like we had one Ruger Vaquero at the time. So the idea of like getting all the, it was kind of daunting, but this would make two, right? So I took it home and proceeded to get in way over my head into a project of restoring this. And yes, I hear you now firing up your fingers for the comment section. Yes, I absolutely destroyed the value of this gun by restoring it. I get it. This belonged to my great-grandfather, and it's not going anywhere, and I don't care about the resale value of it. I needed it to function, and I wanted it to look kind of purty. So, also, when you're getting into cowboy action shooting, your guns are going to look kind of new, right? Like you go out and you buy some cowboy-style Ubertis or Vaqueros or whatever, or like a Winchester clone, and those guns are all going to look pretty new. And then all of a sudden you've got this old beat-down shotgun. I wanted them all to look kind of new, right? So it took me several months and a lot of headaches and frustration because I am not a gunsmith. And I'm still not a gunsmith. But back then I really wasn't a gunsmith. So I had to learn about bluing, and it took me months. But I refinished the wood and knocked down as much of the old, I mean, we're not talking patina, we're talking like chunky rust on the barrel and stuff, and it was just awful. And so after several months, I gave it back to my dad as a Christmas present. And it was quite a thing. But since then, we spent 3 seasons of cowboy action shooting using this. I ended up picking up a side-by-side for myself, and my dad kept shooting this guy. And we acquired all of the other guns. But when we first got started, like our very first match, my dad and I shared a complete pair of guns. Like I had a Uberti 73, and he had the Ruger Vaquero, and we had this, and we had a Rossi 92, and like we shared the whole set. So he would go at the beginning of a stage, and then I would come around and get all of his guns and then get at the back of the line, and I would go kind of last. And like our first handful of matches, we shot that way until we could acquire more guns. And anyway, so since then, the thing that I love about this gun is putting it in the hands of my friends and letting them shoot it. Because it is a real deal, like nearly 100-year-old gun that you can just shoot the wheels off of. So let's take this guy over to the table and get a closer look. All right, so here she is from a nice little bit of distance. I can't quite get the whole thing in frame, but you get the idea. She presents almost like a brand new old gun or something. But let's dive in and get a closer look, starting with the reproduction butt pad that I picked up from Numeric Gun Parts. The original was completely dry rotted and just smashed all the way flat. It was nasty, and I did not want to do a plastic or metal plate on the end. Wanted something with a little bit of cushion, and this guy got me close enough, and I was able to kind of taper it with some sanding, and I can live with it. And the stippling there, Rafter H, that was done by a buddy of mine, Carl. Rafter H Trading Post and Rafter H Saddlery were the businesses that my dad did over the last 10 years, really right up until I started this channel. And as we get closer, you can see some of the old imperfections left in the wood, along with some new imperfections that we've added from the years of cowboy action shooting and just handling in general. And then as we get up there into the neck of the stock, you can really see the old patina. And I did very intentionally leave a lot of that in there when I did the refinish. And you can see we did lose a little bit of overall girth, which is part of that fitment deal back here, as well as right here. You know, the wood shrunk a little when I refinished it. But again, it was really, really, really bad. And when I redid it, it did look proper gorgeous. So it was worth altering the size a little bit. And as we get into the receiver, so this was once upon a time very, very nicely blued, but it did still have some scratches and imperfections and stuff in there. And then over the last 10 years, 11 years, some of that old patina is wanting to come back through, and I just let it. I don't fuss over this thing or oil it down too much. And I did not scratch that W in there. It was just there. I don't know if somebody actually scratched it in there, or if it's just a coincidence that it's some scratches that look like a W. I don't know what that is, but no, I did not do that. And then moving forward, again, all of this was totally re-blued once upon a time, and then lots and lots and lots and lots of cowboy action shooting later. It did not hold. It was a cold blue process that I did, not a rust blue, so you get what you pay for, right? And this barrel, this was quite a piece of work, and I'll try to really get in there so you can see that it's got, again, that patina just wants to come back out through the bluing. But for quite a few years, this was really, really, really pretty. I put a lot of time into sanding and polishing and working off it was just flaky, gougy, just nasty rust buildup all over it. So the trick was to get all of that off without removing any of the engraving. So I did manage to preserve all of that. There you go, down the other side. And obviously I completely sanded off all of the ribbing off of the fore end there and gave it this rather unique, smooth, and yet it's still completely functional, easy to grip. And then you get down to the end there and you've got your little takedown pivot guy there, which I am not going to take this down on camera, but if you're familiar with the takedown, it breaks apart right there in the middle, and then you have two pieces and you could stick it in a bag or something, whatever. I never, ever, ever, ever do that. And there's the bead, which I did not add that until 2020. So for all the years that we were cowboy action shooting, I shot this without a bead at all. You just look down the barrel and it's a shotgun. And at cowboy action shooting target distances, it's not a big deal. They're usually like 10 to 15 yards away. So easy work. But it just looks a little more correct having a bead out there. And again, it used to have 8 more inches out there that are still floating around my garage somewhere, the, the barrel section that I cut off. But we're at 20, so it's not in any kind of legal danger, and it's still patterns pretty nicely without a choke or anything. I have shot clays with this. I wouldn't recommend it as a clay shooting tool, but it can do that, with some degree of success. There's a look down the other side. I don't know if that's some paint or what that white is in there, but it's in there, and I haven't messed with trying to get it out. And just get a final glance there. And so when I took possession of this, it was quote unquote broken. It would not eject shells. And with a fairly, not too much work on my part, was able to figure out that it was that little guy right there. And I happen to have, in fact, I have quite a few extras, but it looks like that. And obviously it sits in there like this. And if you're using one of these old guys for cowboy action shooting, or if you own one and plan on shooting it a lot, go ahead and order some of these, because they are fragile and they will break, and it pretty much shuts the whole gun down. So they're like 80 cents or something. So just stock up on a few, worth having around, and that will get us for the closer look. All right, and lastly, I would be remiss if I did not touch on the fact that everybody knows that if you own one of these and someone tries to invade your home, you can, and the sound will chase them away. So that's pretty much all I got, y'all. Like I said, we're not forgotten weapons here. I'm not going into all of the intimate details of the function and the lockup and everything, but they can be a little finicky. Not so much, they're not like ammo dependent. They just, if you try to run it too fast, it'll kind of choke up on you. There's a tempo to it, and you have to kind of find where that is to run it at that speed. They will slam fire. That's kind of fun. And yeah, I take it out and I shoot it and I don't baby it and I drop it on the ground and I don't care. And she's just wonderful. And I hope you enjoyed checking it out. Until next time, be easy, y'all.